I'm back today with another overly ambitious TBR for the month of May, or as I should probably call it, a pile of possibilities. Hello book friends, I'm Jen and welcome to my reading life. I am back today to share my May TBR, or really it's just a pile of possibilities because there are entirely too many books here for me to possibly get through in the month of May. And I better just dive right in because otherwise we're going to be here all day. First off, I will just quickly mention the 3 books that are on my TBR 24 in 24 challenge that I chose for this month. And if you want to see all about my TBR 24 in 24, I will have that linked down in the description box below. So be sure to check that video out where I go into detail of all the books I'm reading for this year or planning to read. And for this month, I have chosen Graham Swift's Mothering Sunday, and then 2 short story collections. The first is Arranged Marriage by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. And the second is White Swan, Black Swan by Adrian Sharp. This is a collection of stories about ballet or ballet dancers, and it has been sitting on my shelf for so long. I'm excited to finally get to it. The next set of books are also books that are for sure on my TBR. Either I'm reading them for buddy reads or my own personal challenges this year or for book group. These are books that I will hopefully get through all of them. And let's just get started. The first book is Lark Rise to Candleford by Flora Thompson. I am reading this with the Quiet Classics group, which is run by Vicky at Antipodean Reader over on Instagram. This collection includes the 3 books. This is actually a trilogy, and those are Lark Rise, Over to Candleford, and Candleford Green. And we are only reading Lark Rise with the group. So I'm not sure if I will continue on and finish the other 2 books this month or if I will have to carry them over to other months, but I will definitely read the first book in the trilogy in May. And if you don't know Lark Rise to Candleford, it is the fictional retelling of Flora's childhood and youth. She has fictionalized her upbringing. The main character in this story is Laura, which is the author's fictional counterpart, and this just describes her life in Lark Rise and then in Candleford, and it's really lovely. I have watched the first season of the TV series, loved it so much, and decided to stop watching because I wanted to read the books. And I think once I do, then I'm going to go back and start the series over again and watch it to its completion because it's such a lovely, quiet, cozy little story, and I'm looking forward to reading this. The next book is the Lord Peter Wimsey mystery, the next one in the series, which is Strong Poison by Dorothy L. Sayers. As you know, I am reading my way through this entire mystery series this year, so this is book 5. And in this, it says, mystery novelist Harriet Vane knew all about poisons, and when her fiancé died in the manner prescribed in one of her books, a jury of her peers had a hangman's noose in mind. But Lord Peter Wimsey was determined to prove her innocent, as determined as he was to make her his wife. So this one introduces Harriet Vane. I'm very excited because I really think this series picks up when she comes on the scene. I really have high hopes for this one. And then next is my book group pick for May, and that is Something Fresh by P.G. Wodehouse. This is actually a collection of the Blandings series books, and Something Fresh is the first one. My edition includes that one, and Summer Lightning, and Heavy Weather. So I will be reading the first book in the series with my book group this month. I've only read the Jeeves and Wooster stories, and I'm really looking forward to checking out his Blandings series as well. If any of you have read this and have any thoughts on this series, please let me know. The next book is for a buddy read that I'm doing with my friend Elizabeth over on Instagram, and that is The Fountain Overflows by Rebecca West. We've both been wanting to read this and discovered that we both each had a copy of it and decided to buddy read it this month. And this is the story. It says, Rose observes her musical bohemian family with a child's wisdom, sometimes with innocence and occasionally with cruelty. There's her twin Mary, whose nature chimes perfectly with her own, beautiful obtuse Cordelia, pitied for not being musically gifted, her adored little brother Richard Quinn, and her charming unprincipled father Piers, whose streak of folly ever threatens to bring his family to financial and social ruin. It is their mother Claire, beleaguered, kind, and quixotically eccentric, who emerges as the family's true strength. Sounds wonderful. So a story about a musical family. I am really looking forward to this one. Next up is another buddy read, and that is The Amazing Mrs. Polifax by Dorothy Gilman. I am reading this with Miriam over at Miriam Elizabeth Reads, and this is the second Mrs. Polifax mystery, and I cannot wait to read this. I am so excited. This one says, you are in effect replacing a dead man, Mrs. Polifax. When Emily Polifax answers the phone that morning, all thoughts of her garden club tea in the afternoon have to wait. Her CIA handler is asking if she could leave immediately on a mission that would take her halfway across the world. What can she say but yes? Once again, she finds herself off on an incredible escapade of international intrigue, this time from the exotic towns and countryside of inner Turkey to a mysterious rendezvous with a gypsy caravan. Armed with only an open mind and a little karate, Mrs. Polifax is the most unlikely and lovable of international spies. Very excited. I love Mrs. Polifax. And then the last book is the next book in the Little House series, and that is On the Banks of Plum Creek by Laura Ingalls Wilder. I'm working my way through this series this year. I have gotten into a bit of a schedule of reading one of these every other month this year, and I should finish this by the end of this year, at least the books that I currently have in my possession. So this is the next one in the series, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Those are all the books that I am intending to read, and will most likely, 99% sure I will get to all of those. The next stack of books are books that I pulled off of my shelves that I had marked with my new little system where I flagged the books on my shelves that have any kind of seasonal bent to them, that it specifies what month they're set in or what season they're set in. And so I have flagged all of my books, and I pulled a few off of my shelf that I could potentially read this month. Whether I will or not remains to be seen, but if I don't, they'll go back on the shelf and I can read them next May or any other time. It's not that I'm married to reading any of these books in that specific month. If something is calling to me, or a buddy read comes up, or we're reading something for my book club, I will absolutely read these books whenever. It's just kind of nice to have some seasonal options to pull from off of my shelves, because I love to read seasonally. The first book in my stack is Aunt Dimity and the Duke by Nancy Atherton. And I believe many years ago, I read one or two of the Aunt Dimity books. But I believe this is book one in the series, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that it is. And I have had this on my shelf for a really long time. Aunt Dimity is a ghost, if you don't know this series, and she helps to solve mysteries. I'll just read the back of this so you can get a glimpse of what it is about. It says, Emma Porter is 40, fat, frumpy, and a passionate amateur gardener. When her longtime lover dumps her for a younger woman, Emma escapes to the cloying, sympathetic family and friends by setting out on a summer-long driving tour of England's glorious gardens. A Dimity-contrived coincidence brings her to Penford Hall, a sprawling Gothic mansion in Cornwall, where she finds a duke in search of a missing lantern with extraordinary powers. Suspecting that there's more than one mystery to be solved at Penford Hall, Emma accepts the Duke's invitation to stay on and restore the once glorious chapel garden to its former beauty. The dark rumors surrounding a rock star and the near death of the Duke's beautiful cousin confirm Emma's suspicions and set her, with Aunt Dimity's ghostly guidance, on the path to Penford Hall's secrets and the pleasure of unexpected love. Sounds like just a nice, light, frothy little mystery, and I'm looking forward to getting back to this series. I did enjoy the couple of books that I've read already, and yes, So Aunt Dimity and the Duke, a little ghostly mystery. Next up, I have A Certain Smile by Françoise Sagan. Françoise Sagan wrote Bonjour Tristesse, which is one of my favorite books. I'm not sure if I've talked about that on here. If not, I definitely will have to do that at some point. It is a fantastic coming of age. If you don't know about Françoise Sagan, she wrote Bonjour Tristesse when she was a teenager, and it was published, and it's really a wonderful, short little, almost novella length story about a young girl's coming of age, sort of sexual awakening, but in a very mild way. It's not graphic in any way, shape, or form. I just reread it last summer and loved it just as much as the first time I had read it, but this is another of her books, and this one is set in Paris in the 1950s, told by a young student bored, restless, and curious about love and sex. Frank and spontaneous, vulnerable and cruel, Sagan's young narrator explores unrequited love and the precarious balance of irrational emotions and self-restraint. Well, this sounds very interesting and a little bit different than I think most of the other things that I have selected to read this month. Another very slim little novel. We will see if I get to this one. Then next up, I have a historical fiction, which is The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. I have to share that I tried to read The Huntress, I think it's called. That's another Kate Quinn historical fiction. And it really didn't work for me, but I have heard wonderful things about The Alice Network. I also have the Rose Code. On my shelf, which I think is about Bletchley Park. And I love anything to do with Bletchley Park. I'm just fascinated with that whole aspect of World War II. But The Alice Network is, oh, it looks like this is set both in World War I and World War II. Huh, interesting. So I think the Alice Network is like a female spy network and maybe established in World War I, and then it gets re-established in World War II. My library actually has this on audio, so I think I might try the audiobook of this. If any of you have listened to the audio and recommend it, please let me know. But I feel like somebody else that I know here on BookTube or else on Bookstagram mentioned that the audio of this is good. So I think I might try it that way. Then next up is a little book. This might be the book I've had on my shelf the longest that I have never read. It's teeny, teeny, tiny, and it has a very special meaning to me, and that is The Tumbleweed Hotel by George Whitman, Volume 1, Angels in Disguise. And what makes this so special is that it is about the bookstore Shakespeare and Company in Paris, and I bought it at Shakespeare and Company in Paris when I was there in 1999. The reason I know it was 1999 is because they had the countdown to the year 2000 on the Eiffel Tower while we were there in the summertime. So they were counting down the days. They had a big neon sign on the Eiffel Tower. Anyway, so yes, mine has the little Shakespeare and Company stamp on the inside. And I think they call the people who come to Shakespeare and Company and hang out there tumbleweeds. I think that's where the Tumbleweed Hotel name came from. I don't really know anything else about this. Yes, it says, this first volume of the Tumbleweed Hotel story is about some of the girls who stayed here, including one to whom this book is dedicated, my legendary daughter, Sylvia Beach Whitman. Yes, I don't know why I've never read this. And I'm gonna have to be very careful with it. The binding isn't very good, and I'm really, really afraid it's going to fall apart. Also, a very funny thing about this book is my edition, I think, was maybe bound incorrectly because the spine is upside down. Can you see that? So if I put it on my shelf with the front cover facing correctly, then the spine is upside down. So I often flip it and shelve it this way so that the back side, which is also upside down, is showing. But then this is the correct way up when you're looking at the book on my shelf. Yeah, just kind of a funny little, I don't know if all of the editions of, printings of this one were printed this way or if mine was just a mistake, but just kind of a funny little thing. And this book has a special place in my heart because it will always remind me of being at Shakespeare and Company in Paris, which was a wonderful experience. I wish I'd bought more books when I was there, but I didn't have a lot of room in my suitcase. The next book I have on my pile of possibilities is Towers in the Mist by Elizabeth Goudge. I have only read one Elizabeth Goudge book, but I have, I think, 4 or 5 of hers sitting on my shelf, and this is one of them. And this is part of the Cathedral trilogy. I think this is the first book in the trilogy. I hope this is the first book in the trilogy. I better look that up. Does it say in here? But this says, a charming tale of hope and love set amid the dreaming spires of Elizabethan Oxford. When faithful Crocker, an impoverished young man with a love of learning, travels to Oxford in the hope of becoming a scholar, he is offered a home with Canon Lee and his eccentric family. As Faithful begins to fulfill his academic dream, the Lee family navigate the tricky waters of first love, uncover shocking secrets, and experience devastating loss. Sounds very good. I actually purchased this book because Kate Howe recommended it on her channel. This was a while ago. I bought this back in 2022 and it's been sitting on my shelf ever since. Maybe this is the month I'm going to get to it. Hopefully. The next book I pulled off of my shelf because actually May is Daphne du Maurier's birth month, and I thought it would be fun to read something by her in the month of May. And I pulled The Scapegoat, which is one of her novels that I have not read yet. And it says, 2 men, one English, the other French, meet by chance in a provincial railway station and are astounded that they are so much alike that they could easily pass for each other. Over the course of a long evening, they talk and drink. It is not until he awakens the next day that John, the Englishman, realizes that he may have spoken too much. His French companion is gone, having stolen his identity. For his part, John has no choice but to take the Frenchman's place as master of a chateau, director of a failing business, head of a large and embittered family, and keeper of too many secrets. Ooh, I love that. This is like a little swapping of places, swapping of identities. I didn't realize that was what this one was about. I am excited about this now. Okay, I'm definitely going to try to get to this one in May. The next book I have is A Song for Summer by Eva Ibbotson. Eva Ibbotson is another writer who I have been wanting to read. I have a number of her books on my shelf, and hopefully this is the month I'm going to finally get to her. And let's see, the description of this is a love like no other. 18-year-old Ellen never expected the Hallendorf school to be, well, quite so unusual. After all, her life back in England with her suffragette mother and liberated aunts certainly couldn't be called normal. But buried deep in the beautiful Austrian countryside, Ellen discovers an eccentric world occupied by wild children and even wilder teachers, experimental dancers, and a tortoise on wheels. And then there is the particularly intriguing, enigmatic, and very handsome Marek, part-time gardener and fencing teacher. Ellen is instantly attracted to the mysterious gardener, but Hitler's Reich is already threatening their peaceful world. Only when she discovers Marek's true identity and his dangerous mission does Ellen realize the depth of her feelings for him and the danger their newfound love faces in the shadow of war. Ooh, that sounds really good. Sounds like a coming-of-age story, which, as you know, I adore. Very much looking forward to this. Next is another book that I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about before, and that is The Bee and the Fly, The Improbable Correspondence of Louisa May Alcott and Emily Dickinson by Lorraine Tosiello and Jane Cavallina. My mom gave this to me. I think, when did she give me this? I'm not sure, a couple of years ago. It says, The Bee and the Fly, The Improbable Correspondence of Louisa May Alcott and Emily Dickinson presents a lifelong exchange of unknown letters between Dickinson, the reclusive poet, and Alcott, the most renowned author of the time. Researched for over 5 years and drawing heavily on biographical facts, these luminous letters present a friendship that explores the questions of family responsibilities, women's growing influence in the literary world, and the cost of fame and the power of sorority. So yes, a fictionalized friendship between Emily Dickinson and Louisa May Alcott. I'm very, very intrigued by this. And it's epistolary, which you know I also love. Yes, this sounds absolutely wonderful, and this book is so, so beautiful. And then the last book for my pile of possibilities is another one that's been sitting on my shelf for a while. I actually received an advanced reader copy of this, and I don't know why I haven't read this yet. It's an author I love. and that is Exiles by Jane Harper. This is her most recent book, which actually came out, I believe when did this come out? This came out in January of last year. I still haven't read it, but I am here for it this year. It says, at a busy festival site on a warm spring night, a baby lies alone in her stroller, her mother vanishing into the crowd. A year later, Kim Gillespie's absence casts a long shadow as her friends and loved ones gather deep in the heart of South Australian wine country to welcome a new addition to the family. Joining the celebration is federal investigator Aaron Falk, but as he soaks up life in the lush valley, he begins to suspect this tight-knit group may be more fractured than it seems. Between Falk's closest friend, a missing mother, and a woman he's drawn to, dark questions linger as long-ago truths begin to emerge. Sounds lovely. I love Jane Harper. Cannot wait to read this. And it's kind of nice to have a contemporary mystery on my stack of books to get to in May. The last thing that I wanted to mention was I am participating in my friend Rebecca from Rebecca of Wilson Hills May read-along that she has created called May Flowers Read. And the only requirements to participate in this read-along are to read a book with flowers on the cover, of which I have quite the selection. More flowers. Another flower, more flowers. I think I am set. I will definitely read a book with flowers on the cover in May, and I thought that was just a very fun, sweet, easy read-along if anyone else wants to participate. Rebecca has posted about it on her Instagram account, and I think she's posted a video here on BookTube as well. If so, I will link that in the description box if you want to check that out as well. But that is it for me for my May, let's just call it a pile of possibilities, because there is no possible way that I will get through all of these books in May. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know, have you read any of these books? Is there anything that I should prioritize, especially in the pile of books that I'm not reading as part of buddy reads or group reads or anything like that? I would love to know if there's anything there I should absolutely get to. And as always, I thank you so much for watching, for being here. Please give this video a like and hit that subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed. It really, really does help my channel. I can't tell you how much. And I will be back with another video very soon. Bye.